Hey guys, welcome back. Picture this, you wake up to the sound of a smash rush outside in your pajamas and watch your $90,000 dream car get hammered to bits by your nosy neighbor while she stands there like she's delivering civic justice. Sounds insane, right? That's how my week went. I'm an HOA member. Not proud of the title, but it's true, and I try to play by the rules because honestly, peace is worth a lot. I'm a car guy, always have been. I saved, I scrimped, and one day I drove home with a Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat that made my heart beat funny. It was loud, not obnoxious, not in the middle of the night, but loud enough that it fluttered a few curtains and apparently rattled a woman named Karen's sense of entitlement. Karen wasn't on any official board, she wasn't elected, she just acted like she ran the place. She liked to leave passive-aggressive notes under windshields, stand on her porch with a clipboard, and interpret our bylaws like scripture when it suited her. For months she hovered, took photos of my car as if a JPEG could prove exhaust tone, and left me notes about noise pollution and how loud engines attract criminals. She had opinions, and she chose me as the target. One quiet afternoon I was inside watching videos when I heard the first smash and my car alarm went off. I stepped onto the driveway and saw her sledgehammer in hand swinging like she'd just watched one too many revenge movies. The metal screamed, glass exploded, and the Hellcat looked like someone had set out to ruin a perfectly good morning. You have a split-second decision in moments like that: run outside and risk getting clocked by a sledgehammer, or stay back and watch your favorite thing get obliterated. I did both, froze, then stormed out yelling, "Get the hell away from my car!" She paused, took one more swing like punctuation, and then stood there triumphant and weirdly proud as if she'd done the neighborhood some noble service. I wanted to collapse. I called my brother, texted photos, paste. I wanted to call the cops immediately, but there was another feeling under the shock, a hot, ugly hunger for revenge. I wanted karma to clock her just like she'd clocked my hood. But I also knew rage doesn't fix dents and impulsive justice can land you in trouble. So I did what grown people are supposed to do. I documented everything. I took pictures, filed a police report, and the cop assigned to the case was solid. He inspected the car, shook his head, and asked for witnesses. Lucky for me, a neighbor had seen Karen walk up with the hammer and was willing to say so on the record. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, and after the usual bureaucratic groan, they actually read the bylaws and realized Karen had no authority to act like judge, jury, and demolition crew. What felt like a miracle, or maybe just the law doing its job, was that the board sided with me. They confirmed in writing that Karen had no right to vandalize property, and they told her if she didn't pay for the damage, they'd try to ban her from the community. The police followed through. Months later, she was charged with felony vandalism. She pled guilty. Her sentence was probation, restitution, and a heap of public humiliation. I got my Hellcat fixed piece by painstaking piece, and when I finally drove it again, when the engine rumbled and the exhaust sang, I felt a little lighter and a little vindicated. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. While the legal system satisfied the scales, the real lesson came from something smaller and quieter. Standing up for what was mine and doing it within the rules felt better than any tit-for-tat revenge I was fantasizing about in the first hour. Karma court and community rules did their part. But what fixed me more than the repaired paint was the knowledge that I didn't become a vigilante like she did. I let the system work, and that mattered. That wasn't the only mess life threw at me. Years earlier, I'd been in a marriage that gaslit me into doubting my memory, the classic "you did this" manipulations until you start to believe you did. My ex had a box of college memorabilia he guarded jealously. He forbade me from looking in it, and later, when fights escalated, he accused me of trashing the box. I carried that accusation like a burr for years, the kind of shame that knots your stomach at random times. Fast forward, we divorced, I rebuilt my life, and during a move years later, I found the box in a closet I'd never looked into. I sank to the floor and wept, not because I missed him, but because the lie had followed me like a shadow for so long. What did I do? I called a mutual friend and asked him to return the box. But first, petty human, deliciously petty. I slipped 2 unpublished essays I'd written about surviving that relationship into the box, along with a note: "I knew you never had the courage to kill me, but I sold your D&D books." It wasn't cruelty so much as closure. The twist here, the thing that haunted me for years, turned into my moment of power, not his. Then there was the time my job pushed me past the edge, mental health collapsing into burnout, and my supervisor asked for a doctor's note like it was an extra formality, but refused to grant me the days unless I jumped through hoops. I broke down on speakerphone, got the note, handed it in, and watched them act surprised and bored like my humanity was inconvenient. I learned something in that fight too. Sometimes you have to fight for your own care. And a doctor's note is not a weakness, it's a boundary. And since we're on community battles, let me tell you about Todd, the HOA president, who treated our neighborhood like his personal ATM. He fined people for leaving a trash can out by a minute while his own yard hosted every unpermitted structure under the sun. I volunteered for the board, not because I craved control, but because some people hoard power until you either sit down or stand up. I stood up, and I watched him learn his tactics, the lost paperwork, the votes at odd hours, and then I followed the money. The patterns were ugly inflated contractor fees, missing invoices, payments going into accounts that shouldn't have received HOA funds. I compiled spreadsheets, notarized neighbor statements, and one night at a jam-packed meeting I handed everyone copies of the evidence. People read faces turned, and then we voted him out. An independent audit confirmed embezzlement. He had to sell his house to make restitution. Justice wasn't theatrical, it was methodical, patient, and utterly satisfying. Ask me about petty revenge and I'll confess I have a weak streak of it. An older neighbor installed a camera pointing straight into my backyard and threatened my dogs a weird, menacing creep move. I signed his address up for every annoying mailing list I could find, sent him a box of, well, let's call it surprising compost, crafted a 3-foot sign that said F off, and hung it so he could see it from his bedroom. And one night I stood in my backyard in nothing but my underwear and stared deliberately at his camera until it came down. Was it mature? No. Was it effective? Absolutely. Sometimes people respond to embarrassment the way government responds to a scandal, quickly and with denial. I'll tell you honestly, these stories are messy because life is messy. There's no single moral that ties everything neatly, but there is a thread. Authority without accountability becomes tyranny, and power, hoarded quietly, makes people cruel. The law can help. Community can help. Sometimes a well-placed piece of paperwork is more powerful than a fist. But there's another truth, the one that stung me when I finally let it land. Revenge never feels as good as justice. And justice is best when you don't become what you hate. So what's the final image? Me standing in my driveway on a clear afternoon, hands on the steering wheel, engine purring, a neighbor I barely know, waving from across the street like nothing ever happened. And in the distance, Karen moving out her boxes by the curb, the community breathing a little easier. Justice was served, repairs, paid for restitution, ordered bylaws, clarified a probationary sentence reminding her there are consequences. It was satisfying in that small human way, like watching a rotten apple finally fall off the branch. Now I'll leave you with one thing to chew on, and this is where I want you to argue in the comments. When someone takes the law into their own hands, do you blame the person who reacted? Or do you blame a system that lets us feel like we have to take matters into our own hands? Is banning a bully enough? Or should we be redesigning the rules so bullies never get the mic to begin with? If you've got a story about an HOA nightmare, a petty revenge that worked, or a time you had to fight to be heard, drop it below. Tell me what you think is fair, what isn't, and whether you ever crossed the line and felt better or worse after. Share your takes, your experiences, and if you like this hit, like and tell a friend. I'll read the best ones in the next video. Justice, karma, and all that. Let's hear it.